Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 205. Now, we are joined by a really, really special guest today, someone who I've been pestering and nagging and trying to get on for months. And I've said her a couple of times. I said, "Oh, I'm the one who kind of keeps nagging you and pestering you," but she's a very, very busy lady, which is why as you'll hear when we record the podcast. But I'm really, really glad that we've managed to get this to happen. Before we introduce our very, very special guest, I'll just have a very brief check-in with Mr. Peter Lant and see how he's doing in Bath, in Somerset. Well, technically, we won't get into whether Bath's in Somerset or not. But Pete, how are you doing, mate? You okay?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. There's a saying where I'm from, up in Newcastle, is shy Bairns getting out, right?
You don't ask, you don't get. Is that right?
Exactly. So yeah, you're like, I'm the one that's been pestering you, and I already know what the thumbnail's going to be because there's at least one, if not several, pictures of Bella and Lucy together. Standing there going, hey, and all of this sort of caper. So yeah.
Excellent. No, you do have to you do have to ask, and you do. I just send messages out to people, and exactly. It's always good. So, like you just said, like you just mentioned, we are joined today by Lucy Underdown, who is in Kent, in the UK. I don't want to give too much away because we will. I know that lots of listeners already will know who Lucy is because I've mentioned her a couple of times on the podcast before, obviously leading up to this. But let's just say that Lucy is an incredibly strong woman. She is the first female athlete in the world to deadlift 700 pounds or 318 kilos. May have even gone a bit heavier than that now. I think we'll see. She's smiling. We'll find out. We'll see about that in a minute. But Lucy is, and she's also recently, I think it was maybe just 2 weeks ago, crowned Britain's strongest woman 2024. She's been Europe's strongest woman 23. Loads of I think the Arnold Strongman Classic this year, the UK's won that as well. Hugely successful strong woman, but as we will find out, also a lady who holds down a full-time job, and not just any job as well, like quite a important job, certainly an important job, probably quite stressful and probably quite all-consuming as well. So, Lucy, how are you doing today? You okay?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm really glad that we finally managed to organise. Well, I've managed to organise my time and actually get onto the chat because I'm really excited for our little talk today. So, yeah, it's going to be great.
No, thank you so much. And it was only the podcast that comes out tomorrow. We recorded about 3 weeks ago with Pavlo Kordiaka. He was in Ukraine live, wasn't he, Pete? And that was quite interesting because his first language isn't Ukrainian.
Yeah.
First language isn't English. But that was really interesting. But it's going to be great to talk to you about everything that you've done so far. So I suppose probably what would be a good point to start at would be maybe if you can just kind of, I suppose, introduce yourself a bit. I know you've not always, obviously, you don't just suddenly wake up one morning and you're Europe's strongest woman and Britain's strongest woman and the strongest female deadlifter in the world. There's obviously been a journey that's kind of gone on. So it'd be really interesting just to kind of find out a little bit about yourself, about your background, maybe your childhood, maybe what your first introductions into kind of sport were, and then maybe how you got into strength training, lifting, that sort of thing. Just give us a bit of a background, and we can maybe jump in and ask questions as we go, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. So basically, I was 11 years old, and I've got a twin sister. And she was, we were both very sporty, and she broke a really old school record in a sprint race. And I was pestering at my parents at the time to go swimming. I wanted to join a swim club, but because my sister had done that and my parents couldn't afford to take us to two different places at a time, they decided we could both go to athletics instead. So I eventually, basically I turned up with my sister to this athletics club, and I was taller than everybody, all the other girls, bigger. I was always chubbier, like bigger, and I've always just been naturally strong. So naturally, they decided they were going to just put me all in the throwing events. So I got into the throwing and I was really, really good at it. So I did shot put and discus from the age of 11 till I was about, well, I'm 34 now. So I must have done it till I was about 26. And I was always ranked, like, especially as a junior, 1 and 2 in the country. I was just telling somebody else actually, when I was, there's a England rugby player called Shauna Brown. And she used to throw shot put and discus at the same time as me. We're the same age, and it was always between me and her. And we was always number 1 and 2 in the UK, and it would swap between me and her all the way through growing up. And then yeah, I eventually joined the police force. So it got to a point where I couldn't train anymore. For throwing specifically, and I'd naturally hit a point where I just couldn't fit all the timings in and get down to a track at the certain times that you had to be there. And I loved being in a gym environment, and just got into the gym that I was training at the time was a strongman gym, and they kind of pestered me until I entered a competition. So that's basically how I got there. Like it was a hobby that got out of control.
Okay. And your twin sister, is she as tall, big, strong as you? Are you not identical twins, or?
No, so we're not identical. So I've always been tall. So I'm 6 foot. She is about 5'7", 5'8". It's always been a lot smaller than me, and I've got brown hair. She's got blonde hair. Yeah, so we was very different builds, to be honest. She was more of a long jumper, and eventually got into a bit of javelin throwing as well. But yeah, we was very different.
Excellent. And I think I saw somewhere, I read that you were you training at the same gym as like Terry Hollands or something, or
Yes.
Terry Hollands
Yeah.
kind of an inspiration to you?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've known Terry. So I've trained at my gym. It's called Evolution Strength and Fitness, and I've trained there for like well, it's been open for 10 years. They've just had their 10-year anniversary. So I've trained there for about 9.5 years now. And Terry started to come down, and they had all the strongman equipment, and I would just watch all the guys in the corner. And I was like, I didn't really talk to a lot of people when I went in the gym and stuff, but like I'd watch them, I'd be like, wow, that looks cool, I could do that. And so every so often I'd join in. And like people would be like, oh, you're really strong, and I was like, well, they was like, compete, and I was like, no, I've competed since I was 11 years old, like in sport. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm 26. I don't need that stress in my life. And then my gym owner actually said to me one day, I had like a 180 deadlift at the time, and he was like, I think you're going to be the first girl to pull 300 kilos. And I was like, I haven't even pulled 2, like let alone 3. There is no way. And he's like, no, you're so good. You could do it if you put your mind to it. And eventually they pestered me enough to go and enter a comp, and one of my friends sorted out some training for me, and I think it was Brighton's strongest man and woman. I won it, and then that was it. Like the next thing I know, I'm at pretty much England's, and then on to Brits. So it just spiraled from there.
I think there's a trainer at my gym called Tom Sherwin, who's and I think he did his first comp. He said it was the same, it was your first comp, I think. And he said to me that the deadlifts that they were doing, like a $silver deadlift or something like that, and you pulled like a huge amount of weight. And then he kind of said, and Tom's quite small. He's probably like 5 foot. I want to say 5'6", maybe.
Yeah,
I'm not.
It might be a little bit taller. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe 5. Maybe I don't want to shortchange you. Maybe 5. Maybe 5'7". Maybe 5'8". Yeah, probably around like 80 kilos. And he was entering, I think, the novices at the time. And then the competition kind of coordinator, or the person who was running it, said, oh, well, Lucy's done all this, right? We've got to put the weights up for like the men because they're not high enough. And then the weights like went up because you'd lifted so much. But he told me that the other day. Yeah, it's
insane. I still talk to Tom every now and then, and he reminds me of that every now and then. I should have taken that as a sign that like my deadlifts were always going to be good, but I still didn't. Back then, and I still do now, like underestimate myself completely with those sorts of lifts. So yeah, it's been a ride.
Oh, that's great.
In my experience of watching you, because I've seen you at a couple of events, and then just on Instagram, is exactly what you've just said. Every time you lift something really heavy, you pick it straight up and go like, "Oh, right, that was easy." It's amazing.
I don't know what it is. I've just got this switch. I think I must like. There's just a switch, and especially with a deadlift, I know that I'm just going to walk up to it and I can pull it, and that's it. I don't know like where that comes from, because any other lift, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about that. But a deadlift, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that.
I saw something this. I think it was this week or last week with an axle, a 300 kilo axle deadlift. Was that like as recent as the video was?
Yeah, so yeah, I literally did that last weekend at my gym's. It was at the gym's 10-year anniversary, and like my boyfriend was going for a 400 kilo deadlift. He's wanted it for 7 years, and he hit that, and I was like, I'm in an R-ing all week about what I should do. I didn't train for it or anything, and the most I'd lifted was like the 220 for to prep for Brits. And I said to him, oh, like it'd be quite funny if I pulled a 300 kilo axle, like that's like that'd be quite funny. And I was like, oh, work's been busy. No, I won't. And then the morning of the day that they were doing it, I was like getting all my stuff together, and I started packing my deadlift stuff, and he was like, you're going to do the deadlift, aren't you? I was like, yeah, I am.
Because again, when we give you Instagram handle out at the end and what have you, so people can find you, like that video again, it just flies up. You just stand there, you're like, there you go.
Right. I didn't think I'd pulled. I think I've pulled 270, 280 on an axle before, but this, like, I don't know why, I just had it in my head like I'm gonna do this today, and it just like I know that I've got like this thing, like if I wake up and I'm feeling that positive, I've just got to do it because I know that it's gonna happen.
That's incredible. And there's another lady, Alex, at my gym who met you at the Brits, I think, recently. She's just started. I mean, she's your kind of height. I think she's 6'1", and mid 40s, and she's just got into strong woman, and she's done kind of a couple of novice comps, and now she's and intermediate comps now and stuff. And you're a huge inspiration for her. So she's really looking forward to. We'll talk a little bit later about potentially like a deadlift seminar with you. That would be absolutely incredible. I'm just wondering because when we speak to certain people, they kind of say, like, and this is not saying that obviously you can't get to where you've got without a huge amount of training, but some people are very strong, like you say, from the first time they try a deadlift, for example, they can lift more than most people with years of training. So I mean, I just wonder, when you first started doing deadlifts as an exercise, what were you lifting like within the first session or the first few sessions or the first few weeks? What could you deadlift quite early on?
It's I remember, so I started lifting weights whilst I was throwing, and so I think I was about 14 or 15 the first time, and I started to incorporate some strength stuff into my training. And I remember squatting. I don't really remember deadlifting so much, but I know when I first started at the gym that I'm at, I was around the 160, 170 mark, and I quickly I knew that obviously that was people, once I got there, were like, oh, that's really strong. And that was without straps. My form was terrible. My legs were so wide, my arms were out like a snatch almost grip, and it was terrible. And then I quickly got up to like 180, and I really wanted that 200, but I wasn't using straps at all. And I was really negative about having to use any equipment, because like I think coming from throwing, because I don't use anything for that, I was like, oh, I don't need it. Like, and then I was introduced to some straps, and 200 went up pretty quickly. And I think my deadlift went but it took me 2 years to get a 200 kilo deadlift from a 180. And then after that, it started to progress quite nicely. It's almost like that 200 kilo number was like blocking it in my head. Like my head just wouldn't get over it. So I was almost too afraid to do it.
And this is one of those things we talk about a lot, and we don't talk a lot about doing 300 kilo deadlifts and stuff like that. Me and James especially, because we're the opposite. I think I'll speak for James here as well, because he's the same as me. We didn't wander up and pick up a deadlift bar and go, oh, I'm a natural at this, I'm going to be like world record holder. But what you've just said there, we had Mark Rifkind on a few episodes ago as well, and he was saying the same sort of thing. Is it took him a while to move this much, like a tiny amount, but once he broke that, then it went.
Yeah.
And he's competed in gymnastics and all sorts of stuff over the years. But this is like a good message for any listeners, every average Joe listeners. If you try to push it, like it doesn't really work. You've just got to follow the process and let it happen, and then all of a sudden the brakes come off.
Sometimes you just have to wait for it to naturally happen, I think.
Yeah.
I think because if it's not, I'm not don't have like believe in any faith or anything like that. But sometimes I think if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and like your body knows when it's right, your head will know when it's right. A lot of it is your mindset, but if you just put so much pressure on yourself to do something, it's never going to happen. Like you just got to let it be.
And what was interesting was when you said about when you walk up to, so what I remember when you did the 700 pounds, that went up like really, like, considering that was like a world record, no one had ever done it before. That went up really smoothly, didn't it? It came quick off the ground. It was just smooth. It didn't look like it was and like you say, when you approach that bar now and you just know, right, I'm going to pull this, because deadlifting is something that I think I'm sure all exercises, but deadlift, because of the nature of it, because it's usually much heavier than anything else, and because you don't have the benefit of like an eccentric portion to sort of load and then go. If there's any doubt in your mind or fear that this is going to hurt me, I'm going to injure myself, I can't do this, it just won't do it. The body just sort of it just won't happen. So when you walk up and you have that 100% belief that this is going to go up, I mean, that's, but you say like that wasn't always the case, because previously getting from that 180 to 200 took 2 years, I think you said.
Yeah.
So where's that belief come from? Is it just from experience and years of training and knowing and following? Obviously programming is massively important as well, but where does that belief come from for you?
I think it's been, even to this day, like I still get very nervous and stuff, and I do really struggle. Like I'm diagnosed with anxiety, and I have to take tablets and stuff, because sometimes I'll get like panic attacks and things, and without the tablets, I really struggle. So I think it's something that I've always struggled with, like, but for some reason, I think especially the older I've got, the more I've competed and the more confident I've got in my own abilities, I've like just become more and more confident, and it has taken a long time. And it's like when I first started, I think I've started Strongwomen like 6 years ago, and I would never think that I'd be able to do the things that I'm doing now. And 6 years isn't, obviously I've got a long training background through the throw-in and stuff, but 6 years isn't a long time, like in the grand scheme of things. But it's just taken like just comp after comp, like to really feel myself and find that comfortable spot in my head, I think, where I know that actually I'm here, I've put the work in, I've done it, and whatever happens, happens. And a big change in my mindset and the way that I did it was when I started to realize that if I fail, it's not going to change the world. If I win, it's not going to change. Like my life is going to be exactly the same whether I do this or not. Like I'm still going to have to get up in the morning and go to work, and I'm still going to have to walk the dog and come home and prep and do all the mundane things that everybody has to do. So just because like I want to achieve this goal, if I don't achieve it, it's not going to change anything.
So I suppose you're putting that in perspective, isn't it, and not putting too much pressure on yourself to do it. But I mean, it's incredible that, for like you said, someone who has potential, had this anxiety and things, but you can go in front of now a crowd of thousands, and the thing is, like, it's not like watching a football match or any other sport really. When you go up to deadlift and like everyone's just looking at you, there's thousands of people, the spotlights are on you, aren't they? And especially if you're going for like a world record or something, there's that's incredible, because most people would imagine that the pressure of that is huge. But I think the way you've got that, like you say, that kind of perspective in place.
I'm not saying that I'm perfect now, like with it. Like I still really struggle with nerves. Like before pulling the 700 pounds, I remember me and my boyfriend Johnny, we was about to leave the hotel room, and I just burst into tears. And I was like, "Oh, I'm so scared. I don't know if I want to do it. Like it's a big responsibility." Like I literally approached Darren myself and was like, "Can I do this? I want to pull 700 pounds at Giants Live. Will you let me come and do it?" So I've put a lot of pressure on myself to go there, and I remember just bursting into tears. I think before I did the walkout, like, and was running out with the flag, I was crying, like, and just hugging Johnny out the back because I still didn't know. But it's almost like I've got a switch, and like a different person comes out, because I know at that point there's no turning back. So you're like, once you're in front of the crowd, you're like, well, I've done it now. Like I'm here. Let's just experience it and do what you know you can do.
Yeah. And can you touch on, I mean, you mentioned it in passing, that you, I don't know what age you were when you joined the police force. But how does that work? And how do you, because you are at the elite level of this in the world, and and you still a full-time job as well, and not, like I say, not a straightforward job, a
Yeah,
demanding job, a job which involves, I think, probably shifts and things like that,
yeah,
and working different hours and different days of the week and things. So how do you balance, or how do you work? Because you mentioned, obviously, I know it's different because doing like the throwing, you'd probably have to attend training sessions at set times at the track,
yeah,
where strong man, strong woman is more of a kind of a solo sport. Although there's a team behind you, you can kind
yeah.
of train when you want to. But yeah, how do you balance the career and the training, especially at the level you're at?
It's been tough. It's been really tough. I was for a couple of years in a position where I was working Monday to Friday. It was just the way the role was working, and I only worked early. So for 2 years, I could train. I knew when I was going to be able to train, but in the last 6 months, I'm back on shift work, and I work all sorts of times. I'm never off on time. I could, like, the majority of my shifts are late shifts. But I could either finish at 11, or we're supposed to finish at 11, but most days I might finish at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And then again, the same goes for the lates that we do. We're supposed to finish at 3 a.m., but I could be off at 6 a.m. It doesn't, you never know where you stand. And I have found it really difficult. And what I've actually done is I've actually ended up, I was training 5 times a week, and that's what my program was. And I spoke to my coach, and I was like, I just can't get to the gym. I'm tired. And when I'm going, the sessions are rubbish, or I'm just not getting them done at all. And we dropped it down to 3 days a week. And at first, this was in the run up to Britain's Strongest Woman as well. So I was a bit like, I'm not sure if this is the right thing to do. You see what everybody else is doing, and you feel like they're training so much more than you. And so I had to put a lot of faith and belief in, like, the way that my program was done, and get there for the 3 days a week, which was it could still be a struggle at times, depending on how the shift fell through the week and stuff. But I ended up, like, as I said, like, trusting the process, but it ended up making me realize that I needed to have rest period and days off. Like, you can't always stress, like, as I said, like, this is ultimately a hobby that I do, and I do it for enjoyment. And I was getting to a point where I was stressing myself out because I wasn't making the gym, I wasn't hitting my sessions. I'm supposed to be competing at Britain's Strongest Woman, but people have these expectations on you. And I just realized that actually it was having a negative effect on my training anyway, and the way that I was feeling. And so to take a step back and to reduce your sessions it wasn't the end of the world, and it actually worked out better for me in the end. So we're going to take that moving forward throughout the rest of the year. So I'm just going to start training 3 days a week, and then I have the option of doing another session, but it's more of like a fun session if I want to, and I've got the time to do it.
That's great mindset wise, and it's a great message for people listening. Of you can give yourself 5 sessions a week to do and not hit them all and hate it, which is just going to make you feel rubbish. Or you can say, well, I'll do 3 and I'll be able to do that, and then you win.
Yeah,
regardless.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And it doesn't, just because you're not doing as much as someone else doesn't mean that this isn't going to work for you. Like I now manage to get more sleep in, like, which is very important. Like it's just to actually go and win a competition and do something, you've still got to have your rest period. Your body has to recover. Like, and it's made me, I think working the shifts helps as well, but I can actually really read my body and when I need that time, and like when I do need to take a step back, and especially now reducing those shifts, I've really noticed a big change in the way that I feel, and I'm less stressed about hitting every session. And I'm a big believer in, like, the happier you are in life in general, the better that you're going to perform anyway. So like if I'm enjoying myself and I'm not putting that stress on me, like my performance is going to up, and I think that showed at Brits.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing is that the amount that, obviously the amount that you're lifting, the intensity that you put to your training. I mean, someone like yourself, that takes a huge toll on your body, doesn't it? You need that rest, that recovery, that recuperation, like you say, that sleep. Maybe we'll touch on nutrition and food in a minute, but you know, it's yes, you could potentially do 5 or 6 sessions a week. They wouldn't be nearly as productive as probably
No.
that you're doing now. So no, that's incredible. So in terms of sleep, I mean, this is really interesting because we talk about sleep a lot on the podcast. It's the Health Oddity podcast. We talk about, you know, all areas of things. We talk about, you know, sleep, sort of hydration, you know, getting steps in, all these kind of basic things, nutrition. But for you, having those nights where sometimes you finish at 11, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 6. Have you adapted to that? Do you ever adapt to that kind of pattern, or is sleep a bit of a struggle for you?
I think sleep's always been a bit of a struggle for me, especially. So I've been a police officer for 10 years. I spent 6 years doing a shift pattern, a couple of years not on it, like more on a Monday to Friday, and now back on the shifts. And I've always struggled with sleep, but I found that I end up sleeping more on my rest days than I would any other time. So I'm still, I love sleep, and I don't function. I'm not a very nice person without it. So if I've got a day off, I will try and make my sleep back. But in general, I probably, well, according to my Fitbit, I get about 4 to 5 hours sleep sometimes a night, and then I'm back in it. And it's not good for you. It's not good to be like that. It doesn't make me a very nice person at all.
Okay. And as a sort of a serving sort of police officer, you're out and about, and you're out with the public and things like that, I'd imagine. How are you how do people respond to you in your role as a police officer? I mean, because you are, when I've stood next to you a couple of times, and you're a big strong lady, obviously, you know, and I'm kind of 6 foot, but only like maybe 85 kilos, and I feel really, you know, small and weak next to you, which I am. But you know, when you see normal everyday people on the street, I mean, because you're a big lady and strong as well, you know, I mean, what's the kind of what kind of response do you get out when you're doing your job?
Do you know, like, a lot of time that people are generally quite positive towards me. Like, I think a lot of my job is how you talk to people more than like anything else. And I like to think that I'm quite a friendly person, and I don't treat anyone like any differently. I might have met them 100 times, but I won't treat them any differently, because essentially, like, when you meet people in the job that, like, being a police officer, they're generally having their worst days, and just one situation isn't ever going to doesn't make them a bad person necessarily. But so in general, I like people quite positive towards me. The people that I work with, like, if I've nicked someone or anything like that, they'll like try and say to them, they'll say, if the person is like quite all right, they'll say to them, like, do you know who she is? Like, and they're like, she's Britain's strongest woman. And they look at me and they're like, I can see, like, I can tell. But like, sometimes it could, like, you do get like the times where you get like a bit of an ego come at you, and they'll be like, oh, you think you're big, well, look at me, like, I can do this and that. And I'm like, that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to do that. I'm just here to make sure, like, the situation's like sorted out and everybody's dealt with it in the right way. So in general, like, most of the time it's all right, but I do get sometimes the big men come at that think, oh yeah, you think you're hard. Like, I'm like, well, you wait. You wait.
And I mean, it is colleagues at work and you know, management and people, you know, because obviously you do this this, like you say, it's a hobby. Yeah, you use
Yeah.
the term, but you know you're one of the strongest women in the world, you know. So I mean, you're competing all over the world as well. So are they fairly supportive? And you know, how does that work with your job? If you need, say, for example, to go over to America to compete or something, like you are in at the end of September, aren't you? You're over in Las Vegas competing.
Yeah.
Are they supportive of that kind of thing for you?
Yeah, they are really supportive. I'm really lucky that the team that I'm surrounded by are really supportive. Like um we were supposed to be on rest days for Britons, and our rest days all got cancelled and we had to work, and the majority of the people on my team were supposed to be coming up to York to watch me, but they all made sure that my shifts were covered for that weekend so that I didn't like have to pull out of Brits basically. Because that could have been a possibility of that weekend. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the job. But in general, if I ask for leave, I didn't book leave for that day either because it was supposed to be a rest day. But if I book leave in advance, they're okay with it. And if it's something where I do go to America, so for like Vegas or something like that, I generally get support from the upper levels. I approach them, and then they authorize some leave for me, because essentially I'm not just representing myself. I'm representing I work for the Met, so the Metropolitan Police. I'm representing them as well whilst I'm there, and I never hide the fact that I'm a police officer. And in this day and age, sometimes it's not the most positively reviewed job, but I enjoy the fact that I am a police officer, and I like to promote it, and they see that as well. So they've been really, really good with me, really supportive.
And I think when you're in America, that you'll probably be a lot more. They really kind of, there's a lot of patriotism, but there's also a lot of respect for like the armed forces, for the police, for the fire. You know, so yeah, that's fantastic. So you're going over to Vegas for the Giants Live, the World Deadlift Championships, aren't you, on the 28th of September? And are you the only female lifter going to be there, or?
We're still waiting. I'm still waiting to hear. I know there's a plan to take a couple more girls. I'm not sure who they are yet. It's down to Darren to decide. But there's supposed to be a couple more girls going, but I'm the only one that's been announced so far.
Yeah, I'm gonna say you're the only one on the poster, aren't you?
Yeah.
At the moment, yeah. But you've got all the men are all going over, and someone's hoping to do, like, is it 505 kilos?
Yeah.
Is that what that's the big thing now, is to try and break this sort of 505 kilos? And are you going to go over trying to set a new world record? Is that the idea for you going over there? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the plan. That's the plan. I know, like as you said, like the £700 when I pulled that last year, I expected it to be a little bit harder than it was, and so it goes to show that I've got quite a lot left in me. So I'm pretty confident that I'm going to go out there and smash another record out. It's just planning on how heavy I'm going to go. Basically, I'm not really sure what the plan is just yet.
Okay, so because I suppose end of September, so you've basically got sort of 2.5 months, haven't you, till you're going to do that? Okay, so what would you think in terms of, because I think we saw you, it wasn't this year's UK's strongest man and woman, but it was the year before, and I think you pulled more than 300 kilos, but on an elephant bar, or was it
on the Kratos bar? I did the Kratos bar. Yeah, that's it. Paul, I think it was 305 on that bar.
Okay.
For the I think that was just so that I did it was basically just I don't know, it was an ego lift, I think. I didn't want to say it out loud, but actually, yeah, I did do it just as an ego lift on the day, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah.
But it was just to say that I'd gone slightly more than the 300 that I'd pulled previously, but not I wasn't ready for the £700 quite at that point. But but that gave me a big boost going into the £700 lift as well, because I don't find the bars too dissimilar, even though they're longer. Like, it feels the same to me because of the way that I pull.
Okay, so £700, like we said, I think is 318 kilos. What would you? I mean, just have you any idea what you might go for? I mean, would it be how much more than 318 would it be? Or
I didn't think I was putting a number on it, but Shane, my coach, as soon as Brits was done, he was like, can't wait to see Lucy pull 330. So I'm assuming that's the number that he's putting on it.
yeah, because I have seen 330 written. So
Yeah.
I've seen 330 written somewhere. So I was wondering if yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm assuming that's what our plan is in the next few months. That's going to be what we work towards, a 330 deadlift.
Yeah.
But I've got to remember, like I'm here for like longevity as well. So like I don't want to push my body too far too soon. Like I want to be in this sport for a long time, and I don't want to just be a deadlifter. So I need to kind of, there is a bit of give and take as well. I need to rein it back a little bit, I think, but 330 is very possible. I want to be the first woman to pull 350, so I don't think that's like too far out of the question. So
yeah,
essentially, got a lot to go.
Yeah, because I know, like when Eddie Hall obviously got the 500, he literally just went all in on the deadlift, didn't he? And he just fed himself up to weigh like 30 plus stone. He ballooned and he just literally just, it was all about the deadlift for that lift. You know what I mean? So like you say though, at the moment you want to be kind of an all-rounder. You don't want to 100% go down that route of just being just doing the deadlift. So in terms of your, when we had Pavlo on the other week, we were talking a bit about his nutrition and food and things. And I know that's so important when you're doing the amount of even though you're now, you like you say, you've gone from 4 sessions to 3 sessions, but the amount of weight you're lifting and the amount that you're putting into the sessions is huge. Do you have someone who deals with your nutrition for you and things as well, and plan, or do you do this yourself?
So I did get somebody to look at my plan, to my nutrition. I've just come away from it mainly because work and the shift pattern really is difficult to fit the meals in that I was expected to eat in that time, and it was difficult to justify. Like he's given me some really good ideas about what food that I should be eating and stuff, but I was expected to eat at certain times, and if I'm out and about, I cannot do that. Like I have to be able to eat when you can. Basically, we don't necessarily get like designated lunch breaks or anything like that. It's just if or when you can. So some days I might not even get a dinner, and it was really affecting. I felt a lot of pressure like to eat at certain times. I just wasn't being able to do it. So I've kind of left the nutrition coach behind, but I've really implemented some of the stuff that he's doing. I knew like I've changed the way that I eat. So I always, well, I never used to have breakfast, and I make sure I have breakfast every day now. I like have a bagel and a bagel, 3 eggs and 2 bacon. Then I make sure that I get a high protein lunch in, something high protein for dinner, and then for like if I'm like craving like snacky stuff, I have yogurt and protein powder and stuff, which really helps me like get that sweet edge out of the way. But my nutrition probably isn't as great as it could be, but that's mainly because of the shift pattern at the moment. If I was more back onto the Monday to Friday stuff, it would be a lot easier to do. But even when I was meal prepping, I just couldn't stay on top of it because I just didn't know when I was able to eat.
That's interesting because it's almost like sorry, Peter, it's almost as if, like the training became more of a stress because it was, you were trying to, and it's like the food became that as well, because you were trying to be perfect, I suppose, and trying to do all these things, and it just becomes unsustainable. And once it starts stressing you out, the fact that you're not eating on time or you're not getting the number of meals in or whatever, then that's not good for you, is it? Pete, what were you going to say? Sorry, mate.
I was just going to be daft. I was going to say, I just got visions of you holding somebody by the scruff of the neck. You're arrested. We're like, hang on, while you're eating a steak sandwich. Like, I'll not be a minute. They're trying to get away, and you just holding them like, stop it, will you? Will you keep still? It'd be hilarious.
There was a couple of times where I was in the back of a police car. Like we go out in the car with 3 of us, and like the sirens would be going, and I'm sitting in the back eating like chicken and rice and stuff. And it's like, this is not great. This is not what I should be doing. And then I might like 10 minutes later have to get out and run down the road after someone. And I'm like, oh God, I've got a stitch.
What's that on? Have you ever watched, have you seen Happy Valley?
Yes, yeah.
When Sarah Lancashire, I think it's in the 3rd series, when she's chasing the guy and they both get out of breath. And they're like, oh, and then it shows you how far they've run, and you can literally see the police station. It's hilarious.
You don't know how accurate that can be sometimes on these shows,
Anyway, So, this is really really good to hear all the kind of so I suppose in terms of just another thing that you mentioned, longevity yourself. You know, you're in this as a sport, and you're at an elite level of the sport, but you don't want. We've spoke to a guy called Stu McGill from Canada, who's a spine specialist, very very top sort of spine guy, and he kind of said that at the elite level of sport and performance, often people sacrifice sort of health and longevity for performance because the goal is that important, but then
Yeah.
they pay for that maybe down the line. But it sounds like you've kind of got a handle on that, and you've got a thought that, yeah, you want to do this, you want to be the first woman ever to deadlift 350 kilos, but you don't want it to be at the expense of your health or your life in 10 years time, for example. So yeah, in terms of your outside of lifting, I mean, what else do you do? Do you do other things like, I mean, you know, walk, you obviously walk, but walking, cardio, do you kind of think about kind of health on a different level outside of performance as well?
I think I'm more focused on being still living a life. Like I've obviously got a busy job. I've got a hobby, a hobby that's got out of that, as I said, has got out of control. Like that takes up a lot of my time. So I like to just make sure that when I've got some time, like I just make the most of it. So whether that's just I've got like my dog's mental. So whether it's about taking her out for a long walk, with Johnny, or like my boyfriend's from Ireland, so we fly over to Belfast a lot and go and see his family and stuff like that. But just make sure that we're like, I just continue to make memories and stuff, and just do the things that I still want to do in my life, but that isn't related to strongman or work.
Mm.
I think that's really important, and it's been really important for me. So um, I do like to have a drink. We like to go out and not party, but go out, have a meal, have a few drinks, and like probably drink a little bit too much. And I like to have that balance every now and then, like to still be able to do that and go out with my friends and be a normal person, because like life can be tough, and when all of a sudden it gets a bit overwhelming and I'm like, right, I need to blow off some steam and be me for a day. And so I do make sure that like I have plans with my friends, and like we go to little festivals down the road, or like I go on little weekend holidays, and me and Johnny are going on holiday next week actually, just to have a bit of normal everyday time, because it's hard to come by otherwise. But that's mainly what I try to do. I don't really kind of I don't like to think about, well, I'm really lazy actually, I'm just going to put it out there, I'm really lazy, and I don't like to think about like fitness in any other form other than when I'm training. So I get my steps in every day because I've got the dog, and I walk her like twice a day for 40 minutes. So like I know that I'm doing enough, and I like without having to think about it too much. But I think I just like to think that I'm having a normal life, and I'd like to find that balance. I know
Yeah.
actually, saying that, my coach at Brits the other day was like, I think I finally understood you. He's like, the happier you are in life in general, the better that you'll get. So if you have to go out for a drink, because at one point he said to me, you probably shouldn't go out drinking this weekend, and I still went out and did it. And he was like, I was like, well, like I was like, the happier I am, the better I perform. And he was like, I can see that now. Like the better that you're doing in your normal life, the better you do in your training and the strong woman. So you do it however you're going to do it.
Yeah, excellent. No, that's fantastic. And just well, as we start to kind of move towards wrapping up, we've spoke a few times recently, and like I say, another thing I've been nagging you about is getting you to do like a deadlift seminar for
Yeah.
us at Unique Results in Chelmsford. And we think we've just before we started recording, we think we've provisionally got a date, which I'll kind of
Yeah.
give on the podcast now. So this podcast, if you're listening on the date of release, which I know many of you do, it's Friday the 2nd of August, and we're looking at Sunday the 8th of September for Lucy to come to Unique Results in Chelmsford in Essex. and to do a deadlift seminar. Now, we've not spoke about the specifics of it, like how long it will be and what time it will start and all the rest of it. We'll put that out as soon as we've got that all done. But is this something that you've done? Have you done this before with other gyms or so? I know I saw you. It's something you were wanting to do more.
Yeah.
Right? You said you wanted to do more. Is it something you've done before or not?
It's not actually something I've done. I've done bits and pieces at my own gym where I've helped people out, but never actually done a seminar. So it is something that I've been meaning to do for quite some time. It's just fitting it in with my life. And as you found out, I'm sometimes quite hard to pin down. So yeah, it's difficult to fit it all in, but it's something that I really want to do because I want to help inspire like people to get into sport, like help them improve where I can, and just be like that role model, really, like to not just like, not that it's women specifically, but to be able to push this sport to more women, to show them like what we can achieve. Because to do sports like ours for so long, it's been looked at as being like a manly thing to do and not necessarily like a feminine thing. And actually, like, it doesn't matter like who you are in this sport. They cater for all abilities, all sizes, all strengths, and you can be anyone and still do it. And I just want to be able to show that to people. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to being able to come down and do a seminar and talk about all the stuff that I do know or pretend to know.
Everything you've just said there is great as well, because people look at it and think, well, I can't deadlift 300 kilos, so what's the point? And it's like, yeah, but there's different weight classes and all of that, isn't there? There's different weight classes and age classes and everything. There's something for everybody, isn't there? So
it's so inclusive, and I think that's one of the things that's definitely overlooked within within strongman, as when you look at it as a sport, because there's not many sports that you could do and you say that actually I'm like 50 years old and I'm going to the gym and I'm doing strongman, and people don't even look at you like you're weird if you say that, like if in a strongman gym, like it's like normal, like we don't care who it is, just want everybody in, just giving it a go, because it's so much fun, and like the community is so lovely. Like I just love to see it.
It really seems as well, since I mean we're just coming up actually probably as this. In fact, what would four times 52 is? Oh, it's 208, isn't it? But this podcast is coming out at the start of August, which is around 4 years since we started recording it. And I think that in those 4 years, the strong woman competitions have really, I mean, I think it's probably, Glenn Ross, obviously, in Giants Live have really they've really started in the last kind of 1, 2, 3 years to have like arena shows and big shows specifically for the strong women shows, haven't they? Whereas before it might have been a bit more like sort of on the side of the sort of the strongman or whatever. But now it seems like it's really got the audience there, the support, the backing, the eyes are on it, and it's really. Do you feel like it's kind of really growing and developing?
God, yeah, definitely. It's been like the last couple of years, the opportunities that have come out and stuff, it's really difficult to say no to some things, because you just want to be, especially being at the top of the sport at the moment, you just want to be able to say yes to everything because you want it to get out there. And it has definitely grown so much in the time. Like when I first started, like Britain's Strongest Woman was held in at a festival, like a rock music festival, basically as a sideshow, and just people would just come over and see what we were doing and walk off again and stuff like that. And it's now moved on again into, like, it moved into Doncaster Dome, but there was no crowd or anything like that. And then all of a sudden we're filling out Doncaster Dome, and then we're filling out like stadiums, and it's not quite where it needs to be yet. Like there's still a lot of growth that is going to happen, but nothing happens overnight. And I think us girls, we really feel a big responsibility on having to promote it as well. Like we because we want it to be out there, and we get so many comments from people saying stuff like, oh, we knew that the men did it, but we didn't know the women did it. Like that's, and when they see it, they like, oh, the show was really good. The women really put on a show, and it's a bit different to the men's. It's not quite so testosterone fueled and stuff like that, because we all care about one another, and we all actually want to see each other do well, and we're all friends outside the sport. And it's just, I don't know. It's just something that has just grown so quickly, and I don't think it's going to stop here. I definitely think that we'll end up having our own standalone shows, and we won't just be like sidelined to the men's. We'll be there, the one headlining a lot more than we are now. So I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, no, I think in the next sort of maybe 2 to 3 years, it's going to jump on again, and like I say, in the last 2 to 3 years. Sorry, go on,
How
Pete.
many people would have been there in Nottingham? How big was that?
I think it was a couple of thousand.
It was good 4,000 maybe. I think in Nottingham.
4,000 in Nottingham.
Yeah.
Yes, UK's. Yeah, no, it was four. Yeah, it was over four.
That was really good. That was excellent. Yeah, having the UK's strongest woman and strongest man sort of running over 3 days, wasn't it? I think that was really good. Yeah,
it was good to be, because we felt like we was included within the men's competition for that as well. It was like almost like we weren't put as a sideshow, we was included within the show, like, so it's really good, and it does open it up to the wider audience as well. And I know like there's people in my parents and my brother, and that they're not interested in sport or anything like that, but when they've watched it, like my brother came to watch at the Nottingham show for the first time. He'd never seen me do anything, and he was like getting all emotional and stuff. He said, I didn't realize how big it was, and he's like, it's actually crazy to see. And I know, and he said like he'd love to come back to other shows and stuff like that as well. So it just takes one opportunity to show it to somebody that you wouldn't normally think would like that, and they really fall in love with it. So
yeah,
it's amazing. It's an amazing impact to have.
No, it's
you even made your way onto Paro Dwyer's feed as well. I saw that. That was hilarious. somebody in the comments. Let's see the comments. Somebody in the comments section had said something about your deadlift and how some bloke could bench more than that. It's just like, okay. Paro Dwyer gave him some. It was hilarious.
I do love what Par's doing with this whole thing, because it really needs, if these people do need calling out sometimes, and some of the comments that are left are just not very nice, and you just think, do you know what, you are not a very nice person. So if you want to put yourself in that position, then you should be called out for it.
Yeah, it's honestly, I didn't know he did that. I knew who he was, but I didn't know he was doing that. And James pointed it out to me probably about 6 months ago or something. And I've watched nearly all of them because I think it's so funny.
Because he's a bit like that. Is it Joey Swole in America who does the calls out the people with like the bad gym etiquette and the rude people and stuff. So he's kind of done doing that sort of thing, isn't he? And he's kind of exploding, it's like,
but in an Irish way.
Yeah, in an Irish way. Deary me. Lucy, if people, I mean, I know, like I say, a lot of people who listen, probably already follow you, already knew who you were, and everyone will have learnt more about you over the course of the podcast. But for people who didn't, what's kind of the best way for people to follow you, follow what you do? What kind of social media platform are you most active on, and would you like people to kind of go to?
So I mainly use Instagram. So my Instagram handle's Lucy _strongwoman, which is a bit of a mouthful to say out loud, but it's a little bit better. Lucy _strongwoman. I do have a TikTok as well, but I rarely use it, but I want to get better at that. So follow me on Instagram, and then you can see everything that I'm up to.
Brilliant. And then what we'll do is we will definitely, talk again soon and get this Sunday, the 8th of September kind of locked in. And that would be great. It would be really great for you to maybe be able to go through, standard deadlift, but maybe we can do a bit of, axle deadlift and different things. And you can go through things and teach people. And we'll talk about, how long that will, how long that would be, and we'll get it all sorted and get it out there. So as soon as we've got a date, and we've got a date, but as soon as we've got more information, we'll share that with people, and that'll be absolutely brilliant. Anything before we wrap up, Pete? Any final thoughts?
No, not really. It's been great. It's just interesting to hear. I mean, what I was going to say something after you said it earlier, actually, but the whole thing about just like keeping yourself happy in life makes you perform better. And I think, again, for just general public, general people, when they try to set goals and they try to like go on a diet or like go to the gym 6 days a week out of 7 when they've never been before and all that, it's like, if you just start out and do things that make you happy,
Yeah.
But in a kind of more controlled way, then it grows into a hobby like you've got,
Yeah.
say, and something like that grows into something more enjoyable. Definitely, that's
It's
the way
definitely,
it's worked for me. I've tried to force it before, and like in the past, and it's just like actually you just go with the flow, basically.
yeah. Yeah, it's so much better to just to take all the pressure off yourself and just make small changes. That's why when you set goals, you always set shorter term goals on the way, isn't it? And if you just make small changes and then make sure that you can still enjoying yourself, still doing the things that make you happy, then you're more likely to stick to it and see it through. So I think it's definitely the much better way of dealing with things and putting all the stress on. I must do this and I've got to do it now and I've got to do it in this amount of time. And life doesn't work like that. Life likes to mess you up and mess you about all the time. So, and it changes. So you can't expect everything to go to plan like you want it to.
But the other thing you said as well was that like over the 6 years you were talking about, and you said, but 6 years isn't that long a time, and it's like try telling that to someone who wants a 12-week program.
Yes.
Change their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is what's banned. Like 12 weeks is quite a long time these days. It's now 6 weeks. It's the Dan John thing. If 6 weeks, I'm going to make mine 5 weeks, so it's 1 week better. And all of that. And it's like actually 6 years is a hell of a long time in terms of. But if you just do those programs and then you have a follow on from it and all of that, yeah.
And it don't. I think the problem nowadays, especially, is that people kind of want results and they want it overnight. And like, I think because we live in a very much a now culture where everything's accessible to us now, it's like they want like results and that are expected to happen now. And I think we've lost reality in with life sometimes, and we just need to realize that actually by taking a step back and working at it, you're more, well, one, it's more sustainable. You're more likely to stick to something for a lot longer if you make those small changes and don't expect results overnight. And two, you get to still have fun and enjoy yourself and then reap the rewards afterwards.
Excellent. No, it's been absolutely superb talking to you, Lucy. It's been great. I'm really glad that we made it happen.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I kept pestering you, and we made it happen. And yeah, it'd be great to see you. To see you in Chelmsford in September. Yeah, I've got Magnus down at the gym this weekend, and we've got
awesome.
Gary Clark, isn't it? Strongman Gary Pete from Charge.
Yeah.
He's coming down as well. Yeah, he's coming.
Cool.
So yeah, he's going to be. And then I'm going to have Magnus and him with me on Sunday night when it's the Euros final. So I don't know if Magnus likes football, but we might be watching it in a pub somewhere for the England game. So yeah, that'll be great. Cool. Anyway, thank you so much, Lucy. It's been an absolute pleasure. Like I say, we'll set that up in September. That'll be great.
Definitely, I can't wait.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so. And especially Apple Podcasts is where we're going for the reviews. And if you leave those reviews, we'll read them out online. We'll give away some Health Oddity merch, t-shirts, hoodies, that sort of thing. We will see you next week for episode 206 with Ben Morris is back with us from, is it Bristol? Ben Morris, is it Bristol? Yeah. Ben Morris from Bristol will be joining us next week for 206. Until then, bye-bye.